Beneath the city, older than its cobblestones and the towering walls that have stood for centuries, lies a secret tunnel system that no map dares to show, no record acknowledges. This sprawling maze of passageways wasn't crafted by human hands. It's a labyrinth carved by something ancient, something that existed long before we did. Can you imagine it? Tunnels that pulse as if they're alive, sweating moisture that tastes a bit like iron and brine, like the sea has seeped in. From these depths, whispers began to emerge, faint at first, almost like echoes of water drops transformed into haunting syllables. These words were too wet, too elongated, slithering into the ears of drunks, beggars, and those wandering the night who swore the stones themselves were speaking. And then, just like that, those wanderers vanished, leaving behind only their shoes neatly placed by the gutter, as if they'd shed their skins and ventured naked into the earth. The city tried to deny it all, of course. The priests muttered about temptation. The guards shrugged it off as mere crime. But then the whispers grew louder, threading through walls, curling under doors, rattling window panes, until sleepers woke up with blood trickling from their ears. Can you picture that? Hearing voices calling their names, not just once but over and over, until names themselves lost meaning, became mere sounds, vibrations that pulled them from their beds and urged them to follow. Those who dared to descend never came back the same. Their bodies carried the heavy scent of dampstone, their eyes turned a milky white, as if they had gazed too long at something brighter than the sun but colder than ice. Their mouths dripped with a thick, black drool that hissed against wood, eating through it and leaving behind burns shaped like strange spirals. When they tried to speak, they would vomit fragments of teeth, some human, some not shards that twitched before falling still. It was a bizarre sight. They laughed while crying, wept while smiling, and soon their jaws dislocated entirely, opening wide as if bound not by bone, but by something flexible and stringy that pulsed like tendon. Their voices merged into a single drone, a chilling harmony of many voices stretched across countless throats, a haunting symphony of the lost. The priests tried to exorcise them, burning incense until the cathedrals were thick with smoke, but the possessed did not recoil. They opened their mouths wider and wider, the sound climbing until the stained glass rattled, until cracks spread across the holy icons, until the crucifix bent as though in agony, and when the priests pressed their holy water to the foreheads of the changed, the water boiled, sending steam into their faces, blistering their skin, and the possessed laughed with mouths too wide, with tongues split into forks that wriggled independently, hissing like serpents. And when the priests screamed, it was not at the pain, but at what they saw behind the eyes of the afflicted. Tunnels, endless tunnels lined with teeth instead of stone, and shadows moving between them, shadows that were too massive to belong to any body that could walk upright. Shadows that swam in the dark as if through water. Soon, entire districts emptied in a single night. Families left their meals uneaten, their fires burning, their cradles rocking, as if the babies had been plucked mid-breath. And the only sound was the whisper, louder now, rising from the sewers, from the cracks in the pavement, from the very mouths of statues whose faces had melted into drooping stone. The city became a mouth, and those who still clung to their sanity swore they could feel it breathing, the streets expanding and contracting, the alleys exhaling a hot, damp wind that carried with it the stench of wet flesh. They boarded their doors, nailed their windows shut, but the boards softened overnight, became spongy, dripping with brackish fluid, until one touch sent them collapsing inward, leaving only gaping frames that led not to the street, but to darkness deeper than the night sky. And from that darkness came figures. Tall, thin, their limbs too long, bending in wrong directions as though joints had been rearranged, and their faces, if they had faces, were wrapped in sheets of thin, translucent skin that quivered with something underneath, something pressing to get out. They did not walk, but folded forward, collapsing and stretching, spilling like liquid shadows, and their fingers left smears on the stone, smears that pulsed like veins, glowing faintly before sinking into the walls. Wherever they touched, the city changed, the stones softened, the lamps bled waxy tears, the air grew thick and hard to swallow, as though the lungs themselves were being lined with damp cloth. The survivors fled upward to the towers, the rooftops believing height meant safety. But even the sky betrayed them, the moon swelling to large to close its surface a pocked face that shifted as though it were not rock at all, but flesh riddled with pores opening and closing, exhaling threads of silver mist that descended like strands of hair, wrapping buildings, binding people, pulling them upward, screaming, until they vanished into the swollen glow. Stars blinked out one by one, not covered by clouds, but swallowed whole, leaving only a blank black velvet that rippled like muscle flexing, and when the survivors looked to long, their eyes bled. Their sockets wept not tears, but small pale larvae that wriggled down their cheeks, squirming back into their mouths as if seeking their way home. At the heart of the city, the cathedral collapsed inward, not as ruins collapse, but as flesh caves when it's punctured. It sank, spiraling into the tunnels, revealing a maw so vast its teeth were streets, its gums the size of districts, its tongue a pulsing mass that beat like a heart, and the whisper became a roar that was not sound but pressure, crushing bones, bending spines, flattening thought itself. And those who still clung to their prayers realized there were no gods left to hear them, only the thing beneath, only the hunger, only the endless tunnels that were not tunnels but veins. Not veins, but the inside of something that had always been there, waiting, dreaming, and now fully awake. And when it opened wider still, the city folded into it, stone bending like paper, towers crumpling like soft bread, people sliding screaming into the abyss that was not death but absorption, and those who resisted found their bodies unraveling into threads, their flesh peeling into strands that wove themselves into the walls of the tunnels, their screams harmonizing with the drone, until the city itself was no longer a city at all but a throat. A passage, a single note echoing upward to the surface, calling to other cities, calling to us all, promising that one by one, every place built on stone would sink, every name would be spoken until it lost meaning, every mouth would open to wide, and the world would remember what it was built upon, not earth, not rock, but hunger.